President Trump signed the spending bill into law, officially ending the record-long 43-day U.S. government shutdown that began on October 1st. The GOP-led House passed the Bill 222 to 209, extending government funding through January 30 and reversing layoffs ordered during the shutdown. The stand-up stemmed from Democrats' demand to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies, an issue postponed for later debate despite a promise of a Senate vote by mid-December. The shutdown caused widespread disruptions, from delayed flights and halted federal services to economic strain, but federal workers will now receive back pay. While Republicans stayed largely united, Democrats were divided over strategy, with progressives criticizing Senate leaders for conceding without securing health care funding extensions. FBI Director Kash Patel caused controversy by prematurely announcing a foiled terror plot in Michigan, disrupting an ongoing investigation before charges were filed. In the same week, Patel used the FBI's private jet for personal trips to a wrestling event, his girlfriend's home in Nashville, and a Texas hunting ranch owned by a political ally, drawing a complaint from Justice Department and White House. Since taking office, Patel has fired dozens of FBI agents critical of Trump or progressive causes, angering rank-and-file agents and the FBI Agents Association. His unorthodox leadership style, casual dress, media appearances, and Punisher imagery has unsettled the Bureau's culture but earned praise from Trump, who values his loyalty. Despite tensions over his management, Patel remains backed by President Trump, who sees him as a loyal enforcer of his agenda. U.S. export limits on advanced semiconductors have caused severe chip shortages in China, leading Beijing to intervene in SMIC's production allocation and prioritize major firms like Huawei. Companies such as Huawei and AI startup DeepSeek are struggling to obtain advanced chips, resorting to inefficient fixes like bundling thousands of weaker ones together. Debate continues in Washington over whether to ease or tighten restrictions, while Nvidia argues limited exports could help counter Huawei's growing power. Despite constraints, China is rapidly expanding domestic output, with Huawei expected to produce over 800,000 AI chips this year, still short of Nvidia's top-tier models. Analysts say the shortage shows U.S. controls are working, yet China's fast innovation and state-backed investment mean the AI rivalry remains fierce. The U.S. leads the global AI race with companies like OpenAI and Google, but China is rapidly mobilizing its tech industry and government resources to close the gap. Beijing has loosened AI regulations, invested billions in computing infrastructure, and launched a nationwide AI campaign to dominate by 2030. The breakthrough of Chinese startup DeepSeek in early 2025 sparked optimism and intensified competition, pushing both countries into an AI Cold War. While the U.S. holds a crucial edge in advanced chips, China counters with domestic efforts, like Huawei's Swarms beat the Titan chip strategy to bypass export bans. Experts warn this escalating race could reshape global power structures, heighten cyber espionage, and overshadow safety concerns as both superpowers rush to harness AI's potential. A deepening split within the Federal Reserve has emerged over whether to continue cutting interest rates, with some officials worried about persistent inflation and others focused on a weakening labor market. The disagreement intensified after a government shutdown halted official economic data, forcing policymakers to rely on private reports and anecdotes that reinforce pre-existing biases. Hawks argue that inflation remains a threat and that rates are already near neutral levels, while doves believe the labor market slowdown warrants further cuts to support growth. Chair Jerome Powell has been navigating these divisions carefully, signaling at his October press conference that a December rate cut is far from guaranteed in order to balance competing factions. With mixed data, tariff-related price pressure, and political factors complicating forecasts, the decision at the Fed's December meeting remains highly uncertain and could shape monetary policy into 2026. President Trump proposed using tariff revenues to fund payments of at least $2,000 for most Americans, excluding high-income earners. The announcement came shortly after the Supreme Court expressed skepticism about his legal authority to impose certain tariffs under emergency powers. Trump praised the tariff success, noting they have generated substantial revenue, strengthened the U.S. economy, and contributed to record stock market performance. The president suggested these payouts would return the benefits of his economic policies directly to citizens, building on earlier initiatives like the COVID-era stimulus checks. While legal challenges continue, the administration maintains that the tariffs are protecting national security and generating billions for the American people.
테슬라 주주들은 일론 머스크에게 최대 1조 달러 규모의 주식 보상 패키지를 승인했으며, 이는 회사의 시장 가치를 10년 내 8.5조 달러로 끌어올리는 등의 성과 목표 달성 시 발동됩니다. 주주 투표에서 75% 이상이 찬성했으며, 머스크는 텍사스 오스틴 본사 행사에서 테슬라의 새로운 책을 써나가자고 발언했습니다. 이번 보상안은 테슬라의 로봇, 자율주행, AI 사업 전환을 촉진하기 위한 성과 기반 보상으로 설계되었습니다. 그러나 캘리포니아 공무원 연금, 노르웨이 국부 펀드 등 일부 기관 투자자들과 ISS는 규모가 과도하고 설계가 불투명하다고 비판했습니다. 머스크는 이번 패키지를 통해 최대 테슬라 지분 25%를 확보할 수 있으며 이는 현재 진행 중인 2018년 보상안 법정 분쟁과 별도로 새로 제시된 안입니다.
President Trump has appointed attorney Kurt Olsen, a former Trump campaign lawyer, as a special government employee to review the 2020 election and related voting issues. Olsen, known for challenging election procedures in several states, will work directly with the president to examine election systems and potential irregularities. His role reflects Trump's continued focus on election integrity and his commitment to investigating questions many voters still hold about 2020. Despite criticism from some officials, Olsen's efforts align with broader administration moves to ensure transparency and accountability in the nation's voting processes. The appointment comes as Trump's Justice Department seeks information from states about voting practices, signaling a renewed emphasis on safeguarding future elections. When President Trump announced sweeping tariffs earlier this year, many economists predicted economic turmoil and runaway inflation, but those fears have largely failed to materialize. Inflation remains above the Federal Reserve's 2% target, but at 3%, it is notably lower than most experts had forecast under such steep tariffs. The broader economy continues to grow, showing resilience that has surprised even critics of Trump's trade policies. Many companies have adapted efficiently, shifting production, managing inventories, and absorbing costs without major harm to consumers or overall growth. While some challenges remain, the U.S. economy's performance under Trump's tariff regime has so far defied the doomsday predictions of economists and political opponents alike. A Republican-led House Oversight Committee has urged the Justice Department to investigate former President Joe Biden's executive actions, citing concerns that aides may have acted without his authorization. The 91-page report alleges that Biden's staffers used an autopen to issue pardons and commutations, some benefiting his family without confirmed presidential approval. Witness interviews suggested Biden's mental acuity declined during his final months in office, prompting questions about who truly made key executive decisions. While Biden's team has dismissed the claims as political theater, Republicans argue that the findings reveal a troubling lack of transparency and accountability in the previous administration. Trump, who has long opposed the use of autopens for important documents, has framed the investigation as a necessary step toward restoring integrity in the presidency. Newly released documents revealed that ICE requested extensive taxpayer data from the IRS to efficiently locate individuals with deportation orders, highlighting the Trump administration's focus on enforcing immigration laws. The IRS initially resisted, citing taxpayer privacy protections, but after careful legal review, a more limited data sharing agreement was reached to target individuals who had ignored removal orders. The process involved intense internal discussions and some turnover at the IRS, demonstrating the challenges of balancing privacy with national enforcement priorities. Ultimately, the IRS provided data matches for tens of thousands of cases, reflecting a controlled but decisive effort to support immigration enforcement while respecting legal boundaries. The documents illustrate the administration's determination to streamline interagency cooperation in pursuing legal accountability for those violating U.S. immigration laws.